Good morning, world. And I'm your host. Welcome back to Hey Neighbor Hey. And I'm your host, Winnie Wilkinson. Today we're driving into making our community tick. Here on our little corner of St. Albans, Vermont, we believe we all must coexist to exist. And I have got a fantastic guest joining me today to explore how cooperation, compassion, and a shared vision keep our neighborhood thriving. So grab your coffee, your tea, or water, settle in, and let's celebrate the power of coming together right here, right now, on Hey Neighbor Hey. And I would like to welcome my guest, Jessica. Jessica, let me give you some history about Jessica. She won the 2024 Juneteenth Gumbo contest. And we talk casually after that. And I did put up on my Facebook page that I was going to the National Action Network Convention, 2025 convention in New York City. And we started talking about different things about the civil rights movements and what I was involved in. And she said, you know what? I would like to go. And I said, have you ever went to a national convention on civil rights before? And she said, no. However, she heard her dad talk about the civil rights and things that he knew about Al Sharpton, and she knew a little bit about. So I felt that it was going to be teachable moments. She will now have close encounters, not only with me as a 35-year plus civil rights activist, but also other civil rights activists, and she'll get a better understanding of what we thrive on, why we march, why we use certain slogans. And so now I want to present to you Jessica.
Hello.
And my first question to you, Jessica, is was this your first convention that you attend?
It was my first civil rights convention.
Yes, civil rights convention. And did you had any pre-expectations before you got there?
The expectations I had were that people were going to be very well dressed, which they were,
Okay.
and that it was going to be a learning experience,
Teachable moments.
teachable moment.
Right. And would you want to share more about the teachable moments that you experienced at the NAN 2025 convention?
Well, yes, there were a lot of teachable moments. I would say just listening to the different speeches, they had wonderful panels with different speakers, Letitia James and Jennifer Jones Austin. Some of the women that I really didn't know, I've seen them on television, but to get to see and listen to them talk about the struggles was amazing to me. It was overwhelming.
Yes, overwhelming it was because it was overwhelming to me on a personal level because in 2025, the struggle is still real and we're still fighting. And so, if you should assess the civil rights movements as it is, what you experience at the NAN 2025 convention, what would you say it is in a sentence?
I would say the NAN Convention is a coming together of the black diaspora from all over the world, not even just in America. And the black diaspora is not just people from Africa, it's people from the Caribbean, people from Asia, people from every continent, probably Antarctica too.
Yeah.
And it's a chance for the leaders and the activists who have been in the civil rights movement for many years to come together, to listen to each other, and to help with solutions on the ongoing civil rights struggle.
Yes. And can you tell me at least two speakers that you will quote something that they said?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think I can quote it exactly, but it was Letitia James talking about, what was it, conscious stupidity?
Conscientious
Con-
stability.
conscientious stupidity, and what was the other one?
I can't recall the other one, but the conscientious stability is stuck in my mind. And
I'll post it later.
yes, we're gonna post the whole quote that the Honorable Attorney General of New York, what she said in her speech. And what was your impression with Ben Crump, Attorney Ben Crump presentation?
I loved Ben Crump. I love him anyway because he's such a great advocate for crime victims and the black community in general.
Right.
And he's I didn't know how funny he was. He was very funny. But I don't remember exactly what he said. I just remember he was funny.
Right. He was. He did not appear as a serious attorney.
No.
I think he wanted to show that side of him because he did a good job at showing that I can be on TV but when I'm with my people, this is who I am. I know that you had an encounter with George Floyd's brother.
Yes, Philonis.
Fonus Floyd. How did that make you feel?
It warmed my heart. The man was so kind. He came up and he posed with me, and I got to take a picture. And that's another teachable moment. It wasn't just the presentations inside the convention center, but it was meeting people, mingling with people out in the hallway. That was where a lot of the real networking turned on. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to meet Fonus Floyd and experience his kindness. And he had this amazing necklace too.
With his brother.
With a lion and all these diamonds.
And George Floyd picture.
And George Floyd was on it. But it wasn't even just Fonus Floyd. I took a picture with Fonus Floyd, but then Gwen Carr was there too.
Yes.
Gwen Carr is the mother of Eric Garner.
Yes.
And just to see the pain in her face, that was a teachable moment. You could see the pain and the suffering that woman has gone through, but she was so elegant.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to talk about clothing, but I was reading about the Met Gala this morning, which is coming up in New York City. In fact, you might even... No, it's the 5th. You won't be there for that.
No,
but
I won't be there for that.
The theme is black tailorism and dandyism, and it's going to be an amazing year. And so clothes were on my mind, and I was thinking about another teachable moment is Al Sharpton. I have to say, I mean, he's 70 years old, I think, and they had a fashion show at the end of the convention, and Al Sharpton comes down the runway, and he's going like this, and then he turns around, and he's like this, you know, like...
Yeah, to show the inside, the inside of his coat.
To show the label, and it was a custom lining.
Yeah.
The lining was more interesting than the outside of the suit.
Yeah.
So that was a good moment for me.
Yeah, and because I wanted Jessica to have a great experience at the fashion show so that she could understand the culture a bit more. I arranged for us to have front seat, so we got front seat row. So, she saw how it is, why people would react, why they would be screaming when they hear certain songs. And I think when they danced the Africa dance, that was beautiful.
Yes.
That was beautiful.
Jerusalem.
And that was so beautiful to see the different generations all dancing together and just celebrating that we're at the end of 2025 National Action Network Convention. And so we are so grateful that you came.
Wait, before you go, you have to tell them about how I got in trouble with Reverend Sharpton. You have to add something.
Again, funny. In different cultures, in different functions, there's certain norms. And so I said to Jessica, I got you these seats, but if you're going to leave, you have to kind of leave very discreetly, and then you leave through the side. Any case, while the Reverend Art Sharpton was on the stage trying to do his little comedy skit, and Jessica decided that was the perfect time to leave. So as Jessica got up to leave, he was like amazed, and he was like, "It better be a bathroom break," and without skipping a beat, and you like follow her, looking at her leaving, and she's just chipper leaving, and I was like, "Well, you were the butt of the joke as well," because they said it better be a bathroom break. So she learned, especially when you leave, and you have to leave very discreet, and you bow because they're recording, and you go to the side.
And you don't leave when Reverend Sharpton is on
Is
the
speaking,
stage.
right?
End of story. That's
End
not
of
happening
story,
again.
right?
Especially
And-
not on the last night of the conference.
Right, the last night of the conference. Now, about New York City, the vibes in New York City itself. What did you learn about that?
Well, I learned there's a lot of rules that you need to follow. For instance, on the sidewalks, the New Yorkers walk in one direction uptown and then another direction downtown, so they can pick out the tourists because they don't know where they're walking. You don't talk to strangers on the street, especially not in a bus station in Queens at night.
Yep.
And I just learned that basically you mind your own business and just don't bother people that you don't know.
Exactly. And if you need direction, you look for a police officer. Or you go to the subway clerk there and you ask. How was the subway ride from Manhattan to Brooklyn?
Oh, Winnie, actually, some of the highlights of the trip, honestly, for me, were just spending time with you.
Okay.
Because we hadn't known each other. I just knew Winnie from winning the gumbo competition at Juneteenth last year. So it was a chance to get to know Winnie on a personal level. And those were my favorite parts, were riding the subway. It was entertaining. There were some lady talking on her cell phone about all of her private business. I don't know. It was a very loud voice. And we're sitting here going, when is she going to stop,
And I think how did you feel about 11 o'clock getting your eyebrows done?
That was fun.
Yeah.
And they still look good, too.
Yeah. And that was something culturally that was very intentional about introducing her to. And then we went to the fruit stand. And we got the fresh green coconuts, and then they cut it for us, and then we put the water in the container, and then they gave us the coconut jelly. And she was like, wow, I never had this before. I was like, well, part of being in Brooklyn. And we walked from the subway to the because I wanted her to see the ambience of Brooklyn is not as what some people, the perception that some people have. Now, in terms of what would be your opinion in terms of the area that we stayed at which is Chelsea, in Manhattan, and where the convention was? The difference in that vibe there to where the convention was. Did you see any subtle differences?
Yes, I did, because Chelsea is more downtown, and the hotel convention was at the Sheraton, which is on 53rd Street, which is Midtown. Mm-hmm. It was really a personal story, talking about my grandfather lived on West 46th Street. Mm-hmm. And so he was on my mind because our hotel was on 28th, and we had to walk from 28th to 53rd. We didn't have to, because I found out there was a subway stop that was at the end of the block from the hotel, but I did, because Winnie's my inspiration for walking. So it was 25 blocks either way. It's very different. I mean, Midtown is more of a tourist area and a hotel area and Times Square.
Yeah.
It's really a tourist area. And Chelsea, you start to see more neighborhoods where the Manhattanites live and work.
And on the street, 28th Street that we stayed at is also the flower district. Is where all the wholesale flowers.
Yes.
So you see everyone's scurrying to get their flowers, or they have a big display for whatever function. I like Chelsea because Chelsea's close to Wall Street, and I used to walk that area.
Is that why?
Yes, and I understand the area. I know how Midtown could get gridlock, and I know that Chelsea is walkable in case if there is a gridlock within the area. So understanding New York, and as a 9/11 survivor, I understand where you could be so that you wouldn't be in a gridlock in case if there's another emergency. So that is why we were in the center where we could get to Brooklyn and then come back on the other side. We could get to Queens and then come back on the other side. But if we were where we were strictly going to be stuck in Manhattan.
It was a very good location. It was easy to get to Brooklyn. It's close to 34th Street and
Yeah.
the bus station, and
Right.
it's
The Amtrak.
train station.
Yeah, Amtrak train
Sorry.
station. And you were in the center of so many cultures. How many culture? I know you ate some food from which country?
It was Guyanese.
Yeah, Guyanese food. No,
Guyanese
but
food.
on at the convention, you bought from one of the street food from one of the street vendors.
It was pig ear taco.
Okay, so she had pig ears taco.
It was delicious.
And
Very good.
when she told me, I
Lots
was
of
like,
collagen.
right. When she told me, I was like, wow, that's adventurous, because not at certain conferences she didn't attend, and certain conferences that she wanted to make sure that she was there. Now, what was your experience on when we did the protest and we walked from the convention to Aquaman's building? What was your experience in that?
I felt honored and privileged to be there. I believe a civil rights struggle is not just one racer, it's all of us. If any person is being oppressed, we're all oppressed.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of people think of civil rights as a racial thing.
It's not.
It's not. That was another thing about Midtown. I was talking to Winnie about how I come from an Irish background, and you can. I just guess I didn't notice it before because I would just go right to my grandfather's apartment and visit him years ago when I was a kid. But just noticing how much of an Irish neighborhood that Midtown
Yes.
was, I wasn't aware that it was such an Irish neighborhood, and starting to think of how the Irish were also enslaved by the
Right.
British, and they committed genocide against the Irish in the 19th century, and it was an eye-opener to see, the different people from different cultures, different areas, and just think about how it's all of us
Everyone,
that are
right,
oppressed.
and everyone coexists to exist. And what, not being in New York, like physically living in New York, I can tell you that there is a lot of subtle changes in terms of, there's a bagel store but you have to go up a stair. They don't have the elevator. You have to go up the stairs. And when I passed there and realized that they were still in business, and that was in Chelsea as well, it kind of warmed my heart to know that people still support this business. And that was great. And if you should sum up the whole convention, your New York experience, your Brooklyn experience, your Queens experience, what would you say?
I had a great time. It was eye-opening. It was fun. It was a good experience.
It was a
I
good
loved
experience. And if someone should ask you, will you do it again, what would you say?
It. Yes, in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat.
Well, I am so grateful that from planning Juneteenth, our first encounter, and you won the contest, and we kept communicating different things. And just from me putting up that on Facebook, that you were able to experience real life civil rights the way it is in 2025. And you were able to see so many other activists. And I'm sure that you did not know how involved I was.
No, that's one thing I did not know. I knew you from the gumbo contest. I thought you were a chef, and I thought you were from Ghana.
Yeah, I am. That's where my ancestors
Your
are from.
families are
Yes,
from there,
yeah.
but you grew up in Jamaica.
Right, Jamaican Guyana, yeah.
But that was another thing you taught me, is that you're not looking at it where the enslavers brought you. You're thinking about your homeland when you're saying you're Ghanaian. So that's
Yeah.
nothing I would have known
Yeah, cultural.
if I had known from you.
Were you alarmed about how many times the presenters were talking about their ancestors?
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, a lot of people, because I could tell you about something that happened to me here in Vermont, where I spoke, something happened and it was like a pressing, sometimes you're in a pressing place. And I simply used the assertion, or not assertion, the affirmation, that I'm leaning on the strength of my ancestors. And a state employee deemed me as having mental problems. Yes.
Are you serious?
Serious.
Why mental
In
problem?
2020, because I was speaking about my ancestors, I spoke about a rock. Like when Honorable Letitia James spoke about the rock,
Mm-hmm.
and when I spoke about the rock that somebody had touched, that was a violation of my privacy, my who I am, when they touched that rock because of what it meant, where it came from.
So you
I
didn't
was
understand
deemed-
your pain or your suffering.
I was also deemed as someone with mental issues. And so as I sat there and all these well-educated public figures are talking about their ancestors and the rock that they wake up to and the rock that they believe in and their ancestors, I smiled. And it warmed my heart because now I have those shots that the next time I have an encounter with any of those people, I will be playing those shots. You don't understand a culture, you don't understand the customs, you don't understand the norms. Have teachable moments. Find out. No condemnation, no judgment. We believe a lot in our ancestors and their strength, because without their strength, we would have not been here now.
Well, I noticed I was very lucky last year. I turned 60, and to treat myself for a birthday present, I went to Kenya for a month.
Yes.
And I just trotted off. People said, "Didn't you go in a group or anything?" No, I just bought a ticket and went. And people were saying things like, "Aren't there a lot of flies and cannibals?" And just the ideas that people have about Africa are ridiculous. It was, I felt safe. People welcomed me. They were kind. And as far as the ancestors, I met. I stayed with a family, and I met the parents of each one of them. I met the mother of the lady I was staying with, and I met the father, and he was in his 90s, and we went and had nyama choma with him at a stand, ugali and choma, and I got to go to the church and meet the people at Joshua's church and have collard greens, skumawiki, and kachumbari.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I've been eating ever since. It's so delicious, the food there, and people are just completely ignorant about.
Ignorant, and the reason why it was important for you to meet their ancestors is because the ancestors, you meeting with ancestors, you reaching with knowledge, you meeting with strength, you meeting with cultural norms, you meeting with a leader in their own right, and which we are so proud of, and which we acknowledge in every aspect of our lives. And it's not something that people who are supposed to be dealing with diversity and dealing with cultural differences and all of that have no idea. But then they make assumptions and they make they write reports that are contrary to your culture.
And then it's in a report, you could never get it out.
Oh, you could get it expunged.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yes.
Because that lady was not fair to you.
Yes. And she will still, to this day, be very snotty with her remarks. And so when the AG of the state of Vermont had an encounter with Letitia, but I know her as Letitia because I've known her since a young girl in Brooklyn. And when I saw the picture with the two together, I was like, well, if you were bold enough to take a picture with her for cloud, maybe you should listen to her story and respect her story and our story.
She took a picture of herself with
our AG in the state of Vermont took a picture and displayed proudly on our social media.
Oh my gosh.
With Letitia James. And I was like, when I spoke about my experience in living in the state of Vermont, a lot of people were alarmed because they were of the opinion that Vermont is a liberal state. It is a liberal state, liberal with restrictions, liberal to what happens here, but in terms of our cultural norms and different things, not everyone would like to know that part of it. And I would even say this because it is factual. The only time you hear the marginalized communities in Vermont mentioned is when there's funding. When there's funding, needs for funding, when HUD was giving out funding, then you hear. But outside of that, they don't know about us. That song, you know, that song where they say, they don't know about us, and they dance. They don't know about us.
No, they don't.
Because for them to, some state employees, to make decisions based on their personal biases, preconceived notions, and prejudices, and act as though that is correct. I would really like to them to at least go to like a NAN convention to hear and see and, you know, have teachable moments and realize that you don't condemn a person.
You know what? That's actually a good idea, and it wouldn't be that expensive. I wonder if there could be some initiative to have people in certain positions of power go
To conventions.
make a program and say, we'll pay the $500, $1,000, whatever, for them to go. In fact, I'd even chip in for it.
Yeah,
to
you know,
send one of
yeah.
these ignorant people down there.
Especially if they're dealing in the minority community and you don't know and you're very judgmental and you make,
They're very ignorant.
yeah, very, and it shows.
But wait, I'm sorry. You're going to say you make, were you going to say assumptions or?
Yeah, they make false assumptions as facts and go with it. And you know what, you sit there in certain meetings and you hear it. And for example, I'll give you a typical example. TRE and THER is the same sound, tree.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a situation where a young lady said, yes, I was there at tree. The worker wrote, she was not in the office, she was by a tree.
Oh, I see.
So I sat there and I'm saying,
She
you
didn't
are
know your
actually-
accent, or?
No, she didn't realize that I knew the culture and understood the culture. So I said, you know, this will be a teachable moment. TREE and THRE is the same thing. It's going to sound the same. She's actually telling you, I was in the office at 3, the time when she was supposed to be here. Oh, well, what I heard was that she was by the tree. Well, you heard wrong. And then she said, why are you getting so nasty? I'm just correcting you. And it was like pulling teeth for her to just correct that mistake. When that was going to damage somebody else's life. All because of someone not taking the time to understand the group of people that the state of Vermont is paying for them to understand or to have accurate information about. So this is yet another successful conversation about culture, about the National Action Network 2025 convention, about Jessica's experience at the convention in New York City, in Brooklyn, in Queens, New York, about her having a green coconut picked from the tree, cut in her presence, and poured into a container. And to have the fruit she had, I gave her some of the Guyanese cuisine, and then she had some more Spanish cuisines, pig ears, that I've never tried that, but she did, right? A lot of collagen. And so now this is what I am about, building relationships, understanding other cultures, understanding other people's norms, and so that we all could coexist to exist. And I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank you for having candid conversations as we explore how we can all coexist to exist. And this is your host, Winnie Wilkinson of Hey Neighbor Hey, One Love, peace out.